When I started learning English, I was a child. I didn't know anything about how to do that. I learned English at school, and unfortunately, not everything that we did at school was good or effective. And today I want to share my personal experience with you, and I want to tell you how I learned English. So I started learning English when I was 6 years old and when I went to school. Yes, I was 6 when I started school. It was my first year at school, and we had English lessons. I studied in a specialized school, which means that we had more English lessons than students or pupils of other schools. As far as I remember, we had about 5 English lessons per week, so it means that we had English lessons every day. And I really loved them. I loved my English lessons because I really loved my first English teacher. Her name is Valentina, and when I was a child, I thought that she was very beautiful, very nice, very kind, and I wanted to be like her. Like when I looked at her, I thought, wow, what an amazing, what a gorgeous woman. I want to be like her. That's why I studied really well. Like I did all my homework. I learned all the words, and I was always very good. I had very good behavior at the lesson. Like I was a good student, and I always got the best mark. When I studied at school, we had marks from 1 to 5. Students didn't usually get 1 because 1, it was very, very bad, and I think nobody got that mark. But we could have 2 or 3, especially if we didn't do our homework or if we misbehaved, which means if we did something really bad at the lesson, or if we didn't know anything, then we could get 2 or 3, which was quite bad. But if you studied well, if you did your homework, if you answered at the lessons, then you got 4 or 5, and I usually got 5. So I was a very good student, and I was one of the best students in my class because I really liked my teacher. And now I understand that it is really important to have a teacher who you like and who you feel comfortable with. So if you feel comfortable at the lessons, it's really important because it can motivate you to study better. But there was another problem in my case. Although I did all my homework and I studied well, when I was in the 4th year of school, we started to have lessons with an American teacher. I remember him quite well. His name was Jeremy, and he was from the USA. Obviously, he was American and he was a native speaker, which means that English was his native language. I don't know how he came to our school. Maybe he was our teacher's friend and she offered him to visit students and to have lessons with us. But I remember that every week, every Thursday, as far as I remember even now, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, every Thursday, we had 1 lesson with Jeremy. He came to our school and he told us some stories. We played some games. We sang songs with him, and he was very nice, very funny. He was young. He was like 20, 25 years old. I don't know for sure, but he was young, he was funny, he was nice, and I liked him because he was unusual for us. I remember that he used to sit on the desk, not on the chair, but on the desk. And it was very strange because other teachers at school were very, very strict, like this. And he was always smiling, and he sat on the desk, and it was, for children, it was kind of like, wow, you can do that, like how? But the problem was, surprise, surprise, that I didn't understand almost a word of what he was saying. Like, I didn't understand him. He was saying something, I listened, but I couldn't understand. And it was very strange because I was one of the best students in our class. But when I listened to Jeremy, I couldn't understand a word. So it was a little bit difficult for me. Those lessons were like torture for me. I was really I felt really bad. It was very embarrassing, like embarrassing. I was embarrassed. I was shocked because I always was like very good student, and in this situation I didn't know what to do. Well, now I understand, because I'm a teacher myself, and I understand that the reason of this was that we didn't listen to enough English. We didn't have any internet and any other resources where we could listen to English a lot. Well, nowadays we are lucky. We can find a lot of information in English. We can watch videos on YouTube for free. Yeah, we can watch our favorite films. We can listen to podcasts. We can find friends and have online meetings with them in English. But when I was a child, when we wanted to listen to music, we had these objects called cassettes. We had cassettes, and that's how we listened to music. And we didn't have I didn't have any cassettes with English. Yeah, so I could listen to English only at school when we had lessons with our teachers. That's why it was very unusual for me to hear a native speaker, and of course now I understand that it's natural that I couldn't understand him at all. Well, in a while, I think he was with us for 1 year, and then I went to the 5th grade, to the 5th year of my school, and I think we had another teacher, and then our teachers changed all the time. So, for example, we have one teacher, then in a few months we have another teacher, then another English teacher, and all our lessons were the same. All our English lessons were very, very typical. So at the beginning of the lesson, our teacher told us, "Good morning, students," and we said, "Good morning, teacher." She said, "Please sit down," and we sat down. Then she asked somebody, she nominated a student, so she said, for example, "Anna, please tell me, what day is it today?" And Anna said, "Today is Monday," and the teacher wrote Monday on the board. And then she asked somebody else, like, "What date is it today?" And somebody said, for example, "Today is the 15th of November," and she wrote down the 15th of November. And then the topic of the lesson, like the name of the lesson, for example, present simple. Okay, so write down present simple. And we wrote down in our notebooks. And then we wrote down the rule. For example, present simple is used when we talk about things that we do every day, about regular actions or permanent states, and we had to write everything down. And our home task for the next lesson was to learn it by heart. So for example, next time I need to raise my hand to stand up and to say, present simple is used when we talk about regular actions. And if I remember everything well, then good job, I have 5. Okay, but now I understand it's not very effective, to be honest. You can learn a lot of information about the language, and it doesn't mean that you can use this language, that you can speak and you can understand other people. Because language is a tool, it's an instrument that you can use in communication. Every day we use our language when we speak, and we don't think what tense we use, what form we need. When we go shopping, for example, you don't think, okay, so what's the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? No, you just say quickly because you heard a lot and you practiced a lot. But at school, what we did, we learned about the language. We learned the rules. We learned different lists of words, like many words, many expressions. We wrote dictations. We did exercises, but we didn't speak English, and we didn't listen to English. What we did, we read texts. Yes, we read texts, but it was very boring. You know why? Not because the texts weren't interesting. No, they were interesting. But we didn't have time to read this text silently. Like now, when I find a text that is interesting for me, I just read it silently. I understand what the text is about, and then I can think about this text. I can answer some questions, I can discuss it with somebody. But back then at school, when we read a text, it was like that. The teacher said, for example, Anna, start please. And Anna read the text out loud, and we all listened and tracked like what she said. And then teacher stopped her and said, for example, Anton, continue. And he read next sentence or next paragraph. And that was very boring because some students read very slowly, and you had to track that, because if teacher asks you and you don't know where you are in the text, that's very bad for you. You can get 2 for that, because you were not attentive. You should be attentive at the lesson. So we had to track the text, to listen, and sometimes other students who read the text, they could make a lot of mistakes, and the teacher corrected them, and you had to listen to it. It was very boring. And that's why I didn't like my English lessons. I was always bored, and I didn't want to go to my English lessons. But I was good at English. For me, all this system of the language was very logical, and I understood this logic. So I could do the exercises quickly. I could remember some words quickly. And that's why I was a good student. So teachers liked me. Usually I got 5 or 4, but usually 5. And I had a good memory, which means that I could remember a lot of things. And at the end of our school years, we had an exam. We had an English exam. And what we needed to do is to remember a lot of, we call them topics. there were texts about different things. For example, a topic about myself, and you had a text that you had to remember. And when we had this exam, you had to tell it by heart. Like you had to say, for example, okay, about, like, you take a ticket and you see, okay, about myself. Okay. Before I start talking about myself, let me introduce my, and like there was a text that you just had to memorize, to remember, and then to retell. It wasn't difficult. I could remember them pretty well, but it was really boring and it wasn't very effective, because when you speak in real life, you don't tell the texts that you remembered. Yet you don't tell people what you had in some book, and you don't use the same words again and again. That's why now I understand that we wasted a lot of time at school. Instead of communicating, instead of talking, and what is the most important, listening to English, we had to remember those texts, to retell those texts, and to do a lot of exercises, which wasn't very helpful for us. Of course, by the end of school, I could use English a little bit, I could speak, but mostly when I spoke, I just said phrases from those texts. So I couldn't speak freely about any topic. No, I just could retell what I learned. And it took me 10 years or even 11 years at school to achieve this level where I could use some English phrases and some English tenses, which I personally think isn't a very good result. And this happened only because I was good at English, because I worked hard, I did a lot of work, but also because I think I have some talent. I mean, not everybody in my class not everybody was able to speak and to use the language. Only 2, 3, or maybe 4 students were good at English at the end of our school education. Now I know that there are more effective, more useful methods. There are better methods, better things that you could do to learn a foreign language. And now when I learn new languages, I choose some other things. I don't just learn the rules and do the exercises. No. And yeah, this method, when you do the exercises and you translate a lot, yeah, it helps, but it helps with some very specific tasks. For example, if you want in your life to know how to translate, if you want to be a translator or an interpreter, yes, you need to translate a lot to learn how to do that. If you need to do exercises or to read texts out loud, for example, if you want to read English texts to your little children before they go to bed, then yeah, probably you need to read out loud a lot. But if you want to learn English or any other language, just to use it in real life, to communicate with people, to understand different information in English or in any other language, then there are better things that you can do. And that's why I changed my learning practice when I started to understand what things are better. But it's another story. In this video, I just wanted to tell you about my school years, about things that we did, and that I think that those things are not very effective. And yes, you can say that I finally learned the language, but as I said, it took me 10 years, and many other students in my school who had the same lessons, who did the same things, still couldn't speak English at the end of all this long process. So that's why I'm sharing it with you. I hope it can be useful because it's some listening practice for you and you can learn a little bit more about my personal experience. I hope it was interesting for you as well. And in my next videos, I'm going to share with you some other things that I did to learn English and other languages. What about you? Did you learn English at school? Did you like your teachers? Did you enjoy your lessons? Were they good? Please tell me about that and share your experience. Write down in the comments below. So, hope to see you soon. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.